Imagine this. It's 7 a.m. on the subway in Manhattan, and Sarah's already replaying yesterday's presentation in her head for the 100th time. What if I said the wrong thing? What if my boss thinks I'm incompetent? What if this ruins my promotion chances? Meanwhile, 3,000 miles away in Los Angeles, Mike sits in bumper-to-bumper traffic on the 405, his mind spinning through every possible scenario for his upcoming job interview. What if I'm late? What if they ask about that gap in my resume? What if I freeze up completely? Sound familiar? If you've ever felt like your brain has a mind of its own, constantly churning through endless what-ifs and worst-case scenarios, you're definitely not alone. We live in a world that seems designed to make our minds race. Between social media notifications, work pressures, relationship complexities, and the constant stream of information hitting us every day, it's no wonder our thoughts feel like they're stuck on a hamster wheel that never stops spinning. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who somehow found time to become one of history's greatest philosophers, once said something that cuts right to the heart of this struggle. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Think about that for a moment. Here's a guy who literally had the weight of an empire on his shoulders, dealing with wars, plagues, and political chaos, yet he understood something we often forget in our daily lives. The truth is, overthinking isn't a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It's actually your brain trying to protect you by preparing for every possible outcome. The problem is, it's like having a security guard who never sleeps and sees danger in every shadow. Your mind means well, but it can end up creating more problems than it solves. Today, we're going to tackle this challenge head-on with 10 practical strategies rooted in ancient Stoic wisdom but designed for modern life. These aren't abstract philosophical concepts that sound good in theory but fall apart in practice. These are real tools that have helped people for over 2,000 years, and they're just as relevant whether you're dealing with work stress in Chicago, relationship anxiety in Miami, or financial worries in Seattle. Each technique we'll explore gives you a different way to step back from the mental chaos and reclaim your peace of mind. Some will help you create distance from your thoughts, others will show you how to redirect your mental energy, and a few might surprise you with their simplicity and effectiveness. If you're ready to break free from the exhausting cycle of overthinking and discover what it feels like to have a calmer, more focused mind, make sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe to STOIC VIVU. We're here to make ancient wisdom practical for modern life, and trust me, by the end of this video, you'll have a toolkit that can transform how you handle those racing thoughts. Let's dive in and start taking back control of your mental space, one technique at a time. 1. When your thoughts attack you, the cloud technique. Let me tell you about Rachel, a marketing manager in Chicago who knows this feeling all too well. She's sitting in her downtown office, trying to focus on an important campaign proposal when suddenly her mind starts attacking her with thoughts. What if this campaign flops? What if the client hates it? What if I get fired? What if I can't pay my rent? Within minutes, she's gone from productive work mode to full-blown panic, her heart racing and her palms sweaty, all because her thoughts decided to go on the offensive. This is what I call the thought attack, when your mind becomes your own worst enemy, bombarding you with worries, doubts, and fears that feel completely real and urgent. It's like having an aggressive salesperson in your head who won't take no for an answer, constantly trying to sell you on worst-case scenarios you never wanted to buy. Here's what most people don't realize: those thoughts attacking you aren't actually you. I know that sounds strange, but stick with me here. Marcus Aurelius understood this distinction perfectly when he wrote about the power we have over our minds. The ancient Stoics had a term for this. They called intrusive thoughts phantasiae, which basically means impressions or presentations that show up in your consciousness. Think of them like uninvited guests at your mental party. The revolutionary insight here is that you don't have to identify with every thought that pops into your head. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it's true, important, or deserving of your attention. This is where the cloud technique comes in, and it's going to change how you relate to your overthinking forever. Picture your mind as a vast, clear sky. Now imagine your overthinking thoughts as clouds passing through that sky. Some clouds are dark and stormy. Those are your anxiety thoughts about the future. Some are gray and heavy. Those are your regret thoughts about the past. Others might be wispy and scattered. Those are your random worries and what-if scenarios. Here's the key: you are not the clouds. You are the sky itself, vast, unchanging, and fundamentally peaceful. The clouds are just temporary visitors passing through your mental space. They come, they create some weather, and then they move on. The sky doesn't fight the clouds, doesn't try to push them away, and doesn't get upset about their presence. The sky simply observes them with calm detachment. When Rachel learned this technique, everything changed for her. The next time her thoughts started attacking her with, "What if this campaign flops?" she didn't engage with the thought or try to argue with it. Instead, she visualized it as a dark, stormy cloud passing through her mental sky. She acknowledged it. "I see you, worry cloud," and then watched it drift away without grabbing onto it or following it down the rabbit hole of catastrophic thinking. The practical application is surprisingly simple but incredibly powerful. When you notice overthinking starting to take over, immediately shift into observer mode. Instead of thinking, "I'm so worried about this presentation," try thinking, "I notice worry thoughts about the presentation are passing through my mind right now." This small shift in language creates massive psychological distance between you and the thought. You can even get creative with your cloud visualization. Maybe your work worries are dark storm clouds, your relationship concerns are fluffy white clouds, and your financial anxieties are those dramatic, towering thunderheads. The specific imagery doesn't matter. What matters is that you're training your mind to see thoughts as temporary weather patterns rather than permanent features of your mental landscape. Marcus Aurelius practiced this kind of mental distancing throughout his life, even while running an empire. He wrote in his personal journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He wasn't just philosophizing, he was giving himself practical reminders for dealing with the constant stream of political pressures, military concerns, and personal challenges that came with his position. The beauty of the cloud technique is that it doesn't require you to suppress your thoughts or pretend they don't exist. Suppression usually backfires anyway. Try not to think about a pink elephant and that's all you can think about. Instead, this technique teaches you to change your relationship with your thoughts. You acknowledge them, observe them with curiosity rather than fear, and then let them pass naturally. Start practicing this today. The next time you catch your mind launching a thought attack, take a deep breath and remind yourself, "I am the sky, not the clouds." Watch those intrusive thoughts drift across your mental horizon without grabbing onto them or following them into the storm. With practice, you'll discover that you have far more control over your mental peace than you ever imagined. Remember, every master was once a beginner. Rachel didn't become a cloud-watching expert overnight, but with consistent practice, she transformed her relationship with overthinking. You can too. 2. How to stop your mind from racing, the 5-minute focus fix. Meet Jason, a graduate student at Boston University who's supposed to be writing his thesis on American literature, but his mind has other plans. He sits in the library, laptop open, cursor blinking on a blank page, while his brain runs a marathon of distracting thoughts. Did I lock my apartment door? What if my advisor thinks this topic is stupid? I should probably check my email. Oh no, I forgot to call my mom back. What if I never finish this degree? Maybe I should switch majors. Wait, what was I supposed to be writing about again? Sound familiar? This is what I call the mental pinball machine, when your thoughts bounce frantically from one thing to another, never staying focused long enough to actually accomplish anything meaningful. It's exhausting, frustrating, and incredibly common in our hyper-connected world where our attention gets pulled in 17 different directions every 5 minutes. The racing mind is like having a browser with 50 tabs open, each playing a different video at full volume. No wonder we feel mentally drained even when we haven't actually done anything productive. But here's the good news. The ancient Stoics figured out how to tame this mental chaos over 2,000 years ago, and their solution is surprisingly simple and effective. Seneca, the Roman philosopher who balanced being a successful businessman with deep philosophical wisdom, understood this challenge perfectly. He wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Think about that for a moment. Most of our racing thoughts are either rehashing the past or worrying about the future. Very few of them are actually focused on what's happening right now in this moment. This brings us to what I call the 5-minute focus fix, and it's based on a fundamental Stoic principle called the dichotomy of control. The idea is simple: there are things you can control and things you can't control. Your racing thoughts are usually focused on things you can't control: other people's opinions, future outcomes, past mistakes. But there's one thing you always have complete control over: what you choose to focus on right now. Here's how the 5-minute focus fix works. When you notice your mind racing like Jason's did in that library, you immediately redirect all your mental energy into one simple, present moment task. It doesn't have to be complicated or important. In fact, simple is better. You could organize your desk, write down 3 things you're grateful for, do 10 push-ups, or make yourself a cup of tea with complete attention to every step of the process. The key is total engagement. When Jason learned this technique, he started with something as simple as organizing his backpack. Instead of letting his mind wander to thesis anxiety or apartment security, he focused completely on the task at hand. He felt the texture of each book cover, noticed the weight of his laptop, arranged his pens in order of color. For those 5 minutes, his racing mind had nowhere to go except into the present moment. What's happening here is that you're essentially hijacking your brain's attention system. Instead of letting your thoughts scatter like leaves in the wind, you're gathering all that mental energy and channeling it into purposeful action. It's like taking all those browser tabs and closing them down to focus on just one important task. The beauty of this approach is that it works with your brain's natural tendencies rather than against them. Your mind wants to be active and engaged, that's why it races in the first place. Instead of trying to force it to be quiet, which usually backfires, you give it something constructive to do. You're not suppressing the energy, you're redirecting it. Seneca practiced this constantly in his own life. As a busy advisor to emperors and successful businessman, he could have easily let his mind race with political concerns, financial worries, and social obligations. Instead, he trained himself to focus completely on whatever task was in front of him. When he was writing, he wrote with full attention. When he was in meetings, he listened completely. When he was walking in his garden, he noticed every flower and bird. This isn't just about productivity, though that's a nice side effect. It's about reclaiming your mental peace and discovering what it feels like to be fully present in your own life. When your mind is racing, you're not really living, you're just being dragged along by the chaos of your thoughts. Try this right now. If you notice your mind starting to race while watching this video, pick one simple task and do it with complete attention for 5 minutes. Maybe it's organizing your workspace, doing some stretches, or even just focusing entirely on your breathing. Don't think about anything else during those 5 minutes. Just be completely present with that one activity. You'll be amazed at what happens. Not only will your racing thoughts slow down, but you'll also feel a sense of calm accomplishment. You've proven to yourself that you can take control of your mental energy and direct it where you want it to go. That's real power, and it's available to you anytime you choose to use it. Remember, the goal isn't to never have racing thoughts again. That's not realistic. The goal is to have the tools to redirect that mental energy when it's not serving you. With practice, you'll find that your mind naturally becomes more focused and peaceful even in the middle of life's inevitable chaos. 3. Why holding on makes you miserable, the river method. Let me introduce you to David, a software engineer in Seattle who's been stuck in mental quicksand for 3 months. His startup just failed after 2 years of 18-hour days, and he can't stop replaying every decision, every missed opportunity, every conversation that might have changed the outcome. He lies awake at night thinking, if only I had hired that marketing person sooner. If only I had listened to my co-founder about the pricing strategy. If only I had pitched to that investor differently. His mind has become a prison where he's both the guard and the prisoner. This is the agony of mental attachment when we grip our thoughts so tightly that they end up strangling our peace of mind. It's like trying to hold water in your bare hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it slips away. David's startup failure was painful enough on its own, but his refusal to let go was creating a second layer of suffering that was entirely self-inflicted. Here's something most people don't understand about overthinking. It's not actually about the original problem. It's about our inability to accept that some things are beyond our control and that clinging to what's already gone only multiplies our misery. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply, which is why Epictetus said, "He who fears death will never do anything worth of a man who is alive." That might sound dramatic when we're talking about overthinking, but Epictetus was making a profound point about attachment. When we're terrified of losing something, whether it's a relationship, a job, or our sense of control, we become paralyzed by that fear. We end up like someone trying to dance while desperately clutching a heavy suitcase. This brings us to the river method, based on one of the most liberating concepts in Stoic philosophy. Everything in life is impermanent, constantly flowing and changing like water in a river. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus captured this perfectly when he said you can never step in the same river twice, because it's not the same river and you're not the same person. Here's how the river method works. When you find yourself mentally gripping onto something that's causing you pain, a past mistake, a relationship that ended, a job you didn't get, you visualize your thoughts as leaves floating on the surface of a flowing river. Instead of jumping into the water to chase after each leaf, desperately trying to collect them all, you sit peacefully on the riverbank and watch them drift by. When David learned this technique, it transformed his relationship with his startup failure. Instead of mentally chasing after every what if and if only, he started visualizing each regretful thought as a leaf on the river. There goes the "I should have hired that marketing person" leaf, he would think to himself. He acknowledged each thought without judgment, watched it float downstream, and let it go. The key insight here is that thoughts, like everything else in life, are temporary. They arise, exist for a while, and then naturally fade away, but only if we let them. When we grab onto them and hold them close, we interrupt their natural flow and create mental dams that cause psychological flooding. This isn't about becoming emotionally numb or pretending painful experiences don't matter. David's startup failure was genuinely disappointing. The river method isn't about suppressing those feelings, it's about not prolonging them unnecessarily by mentally replaying the same scenarios over and over again. The Stoics had a practice called premeditation of evils, which sounds morbid but is actually liberating. They would regularly contemplate the temporary nature of everything they valued, their health, relationships, possessions, even their lives. This wasn't to make themselves miserable, but to reduce their attachments so they could appreciate things more fully while they had them and accept their loss more gracefully when the time came. You can practice a gentler version by regularly reminding yourself that everything in your life is on loan from the universe. Your job, relationships, health, current living situation, none of these are permanent fixtures. They're all leaves floating on the river of time, and trying to hold onto them too tightly only creates suffering. Start practicing the river method today. The next time you catch yourself mentally gripping onto something causing you pain, take a deep breath and visualize it as a leaf on the water. You don't have to like watching it float away, but you can choose not to jump in and chase after it. Say to yourself, this thought is just passing through. I can acknowledge it without holding on to it. With practice, you'll discover something amazing. When you stop fighting the river's flow, you find peace that comes from accepting life as it actually is rather than demanding it be what you think it should be. This doesn't make you passive, it makes you free to engage fully with whatever is actually happening right now, instead of being trapped in mental replays of what already happened. Remember, the river keeps flowing whether you fight it or not. 4. The 20-minute worry trick that actually works. Meet Maria, an entrepreneur in Miami who runs a successful catering business, but her mind runs an even more successful worry factory. From the moment she wakes up until she finally falls asleep, her brain produces an endless stream of concerns. What if that wedding client cancels? What if my food supplier raises prices again? What if my best chef quits? What if the health inspector shows up on a bad day? What if my competitors steal my clients? Her worries don't punch a time clock, they work 24/7, overtime, weekends, and holidays, never taking a single day off. Sound exhausting? That's because it is. Maria was living in a constant state of mental alert, like a security guard who never gets to go home. Every worry felt urgent and important, demanding immediate attention even though most of them were about things that might never happen. She was spending more mental energy worrying about her business than actually running it, and the irony wasn't lost on her. Her worry about failure was actually making failure more likely. This is the trap of unrestricted worry. When we let our concerns roam freely through our minds all day long, they multiply like rabbits and take over our mental landscape. We end up in a state of chronic anxiety where we can't fully enjoy the good moments because we're always bracing for the bad ones that might be coming. But here's where ancient wisdom meets modern psychology in the most practical way possible. Epictetus, the Stoic teacher who understood human nature better than most therapists today, once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Now, that might seem completely unrelated to worry, but Epictetus was making a crucial point about priorities. He was saying that sometimes you have to be willing to look silly to outsiders in order to protect your inner peace. The 20-minute worry trick is exactly that kind of seemingly foolish but incredibly effective strategy. Instead of trying to stop worrying completely, which is about as realistic as trying to stop your heart from beating, you give your worries a designated time and place to exist. It's like creating a special room in your mental house where worries are allowed, but they're not permitted to wander into the kitchen, bedroom, or living room. Here's how it works. Maria started by choosing the same time every day, 3 p.m., right after her lunch prep was done but before dinner service began. She set a timer for exactly 20 minutes, sat down with a notebook, and gave her worries her complete, undivided attention. Not half-hearted, distracted worry while she was trying to do other things, but focused, intentional worry time. During those 20 minutes, she wrote down every concern that came to mind. What if the Hernandez wedding gets rained out and they blame my food tent setup? What if my insurance rates go up again? What if I can't find good staff for the busy season? She didn't try to solve everything immediately or talk herself out of worrying. She just acknowledged each concern, wrote it down, and gave it the attention it was demanding. But here's the crucial part: when the timer went off, worry time was over. Done. Finished. If a worry tried to sneak back into her mind at 7 p.m. while she was cooking dinner, she would literally say to herself, "That's not worry time. We'll deal with this tomorrow at 3 p.m. And then she would redirect her attention back to whatever she was actually doing. This might sound too simple to work, but there's brilliant psychology behind it. When you give your worries a specific time and place, you're doing several powerful things at once. First, you're acknowledging that worrying is a normal human activity. You're not trying to become a robot without concerns. Second, you're containing the worry so it can't contaminate your entire day. And third, you're training your mind to distinguish between productive concern and pointless rumination. During her worry sessions, Maria often discovered that many of her fears were either completely unrealistic or about things she had no control over. But she also identified genuine concerns that needed attention, and she could make actual plans to address them. What if my food supplier raises prices became, I should research backup suppliers and negotiate a longer-term contract. Productive worry led to productive action. The beauty of this system is that it works with your brain's natural tendencies instead of against them. Your mind wants to process concerns. That's actually a survival mechanism. But instead of letting worry happen randomly throughout the day, disrupting your focus and stealing your peace, you channel it into a controlled, purposeful activity. Epictetus would have loved this approach because it embodies one of his core teachings. You can't always control what thoughts arise, but you can control how and when you engage with them. You're not suppressing your worries or pretending they don't exist. You're managing them like a skilled executive manages meetings. Everything has its proper time and place. Start your own worry period today. Pick a consistent time, maybe 20 minutes after lunch or before dinner. Set a timer, grab a notebook, and give your concerns the focused attention they're craving. Write them down, examine them, make plans for the ones you can actually do something about, and acknowledge the ones you can't control. Then, when worry tries to interrupt your day at random moments, you can confidently tell it, "We have an appointment for this. Come back during worry time." You'll be amazed at how much mental space this creates for actually living your life instead of just anxiously anticipating it. Maria's business didn't become worry-free. No business ever is. But she learned to worry efficiently and effectively, which gave her the mental clarity to make better decisions and actually enjoy the success she was working so hard to create. 5. When everything feels too big, the Boulder Method. Imagine Jennifer, a working mom in Denver, sitting at her kitchen table at 11 p.m. with her laptop open, a pile of bills beside her, and her kids' school permission slips scattered everywhere. She's supposed to be finishing a presentation for tomorrow's board meeting, but her mind is completely overwhelmed. I need to prepare this presentation, pay these bills, sign these forms, schedule dentist appointments for the kids, figure out dinner for the rest of the week, call my mom back, deal with that weird noise the car is making, and somehow find time to exercise. She stares at the chaos and feels completely paralyzed, like she's trapped under a boulder so massive she can't even figure out which direction to push. This is what I call boulder brain, when life's challenges pile up so high that they form one gigantic, immovable obstacle that seems impossible to tackle. Everything feels equally urgent and important, so you end up doing nothing effectively because you're trying to do everything at once. It's like trying to eat an entire pizza in one bite instead of taking it slice by slice. The overwhelming feeling isn't actually about having too much to do, it's about trying to mentally carry all of your responsibilities at the same time. Jennifer wasn't just dealing with her presentation, she was simultaneously worrying about bills, kids, health, family, and a dozen other things. Her brain was like a computer trying to run 50 programs simultaneously, which is why everything felt slow, sluggish, and impossible. This is where Marcus Aurelius offers us one of the most practical pieces of wisdom ever written: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At first glance, this might sound like philosophical wordplay, but Marcus was describing a fundamental truth about how to handle overwhelming situations. The very thing that seems to be blocking your progress actually contains the solution. Here's what he meant: when you're facing a boulder-sized problem, you don't need boulder-sized strength. You need to transform that boulder into a pile of manageable rocks, one small piece at a time. This is the boulder method, and it's based on the simple but profound insight that every overwhelming situation is actually just a collection of smaller, solvable problems disguised as one impossible challenge. When Jennifer learned this approach, everything changed. Instead of staring at her mountain of responsibilities and feeling defeated, she grabbed a piece of paper and started breaking down that boulder. Finish presentation became outline main points, create 3 slides, practice delivery. Deal with bills became open mail, sort by due date, pay the 2 urgent ones tonight. Kids' school stuff became sign permission slips, put them in backpacks, set a reminder to call about the field trip. Suddenly, what felt like an impossible boulder became a manageable to-do list. Each small task was something she could actually accomplish, and more importantly, each completed task gave her momentum to tackle the next one. It's like the difference between trying to climb Mount Everest in one giant leap versus taking it one step at a time. The key to the boulder method is asking yourself one simple question: what's the very next small thing I can do? Not the next 10 things, not the perfect solution to everything, just the next single action you can take. Jennifer's presentation boulder became spend 15 minutes outlining the main points. Her bill-paying boulder became open the first envelope and see what's inside. This approach works because it transforms abstract overwhelm into concrete action. When everything feels too big, your brain essentially goes into shutdown mode because it can't process that much complexity at once. But when you focus on just one small, specific task, your brain can handle that easily. Once you complete that first small task, you've proven to yourself that progress is possible, which gives you confidence and momentum to tackle the next small piece. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly while running the Roman Empire, dealing with wars, plagues, political intrigue, and personal challenges that would overwhelm most people. He didn't try to solve everything at once. Instead, he focused on whatever was directly in front of him, handled it as well as he could, and then moved on to the next thing. The boulder method isn't just about productivity, it's about reclaiming your sense of control and capability. When you're overwhelmed, you feel powerless, like life is happening to you rather than you actively engaging with life. But when you break things down into manageable pieces and start taking action, you remember that you're more capable than you thought. Try this right now. Think of something in your life that feels overwhelming, like a boulder blocking your path. Instead of trying to move the whole boulder, ask yourself, what's one small piece of this I could chip away right now? Maybe it's making one phone call, writing one email, or organizing one small area of your space. Pick something that would take 15 minutes or less and do it immediately. You'll be amazed at what happens. Not only will you feel better about making progress, but you'll often discover that the boulder wasn't as solid as you thought. Many overwhelming situations are held together by our perception of their difficulty rather than their actual difficulty. 6. Why your brain focuses on problems, the 3-thing gratitude fix. Meet Kevin, a financial advisor in Atlanta who's got a successful practice, a loving family, and a beautiful home in the suburbs. By most measures, his life is going pretty well. But if you could peek inside his mind during his daily commute, you'd hear a completely different story. That client seemed unhappy in our meeting. What if he pulls his money out? My daughter's been quiet lately. What if she's having problems at school? The stock market's been volatile. What if there's another crash? My back's been aching. What if it's something serious? Kevin's brain has become a problem detection machine, constantly scanning his life for potential threats and completely ignoring everything that's actually going right. This is what psychologists call the negativity bias, and it's one of the most frustrating quirks of human nature. Our brains are literally wired to notice problems, dangers, and potential threats while barely registering the good stuff that's happening all around us. It made sense when we were cave dwellers trying to avoid being eaten by saber-toothed tigers, but in modern life, this mental security system has gone haywire, constantly sounding false alarms about situations that aren't actually dangerous. Think about it. When was the last time you lay awake at night thinking about all the things that went right that day? Most of us can spend hours obsessing over one critical comment while completely forgetting the 5 compliments we received. We'll worry endlessly about a minor health symptom while taking for granted that our hearts beat perfectly, our lungs breathe automatically, and our bodies perform thousands of miraculous functions without any conscious effort from us. This is where the ancient Stoic philosopher Seneca offers us a game-changing perspective. He wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future." Seneca understood that our natural tendency to focus on problems and potential threats was stealing our ability to appreciate the good that already exists in our lives. He wasn't suggesting we become naive optimists who ignore real challenges, but rather that we balance our problem-focused thinking with deliberate appreciation for what's working. This brings us to what I call the 3-thing gratitude fix, and it's one of the simplest yet most powerful techniques for rewiring your brain's default settings. Instead of letting your mind automatically gravitate toward problems, you deliberately train it to notice and appreciate the positive aspects of your daily experience. Here's how it works. Every single day, Kevin started identifying 3 specific things he was genuinely grateful for. Not big, life-changing events, but small, concrete details from his actual day. I'm grateful that my coffee was perfectly hot this morning. I'm grateful that my client, Mrs. Johnson, trusted me enough to share her concerns about her retirement. I'm grateful that my daughter laughed at my terrible dad joke during dinner. The key word here is specific. Generic gratitude like, "I'm grateful for my family" doesn't have the same impact as detailed appreciation like, "I'm grateful for the way my wife smiled when I brought her tea while she was reading." Your brain responds much more strongly to concrete, sensory details than to abstract concepts. What's happening neurologically is fascinating. Every time Kevin practiced this deliberate appreciation, he was literally creating new neural pathways in his brain. Instead of just strengthening the problem detection circuits that were already overdeveloped, he was building up the appreciation circuits that had been neglected. It's like going to a mental gym where instead of just working out your worry muscles, you're also strengthening your gratitude muscles. The transformation wasn't immediate, but it was noticeable. After just 2 weeks of consistent practice, Kevin started catching himself naturally noticing positive things throughout his day. During his commute, instead of just scanning for problems, he'd also notice the beautiful sunrise, or appreciate that his car was running smoothly, or feel grateful for his favorite podcast. His brain was learning to be more balanced in what it paid attention to. This isn't about forcing fake positivity or pretending problems don't exist. Kevin still noticed when clients seemed concerned or when his daughter was having a tough day. But now those concerns existed alongside an awareness of what was going well, which gave him a much more accurate and less anxiety-provoking picture of his life. Seneca practiced this kind of deliberate appreciation throughout his life, regularly reflecting on the temporary nature of good things, not to make himself sad, but to help himself appreciate them more fully while he had them. He understood that gratitude isn't just a nice feeling, it's a practical tool for mental health and clear thinking. Start your own 3-thing gratitude fix today. Before you go to bed tonight, identify 3 specific things from your day that you genuinely appreciate. Write them down if that helps, or just take a moment to really savor them mentally. Make it a daily habit, like brushing your teeth, something you do consistently whether you feel like it or not. You'll be amazed at how this simple practice starts to shift your mental landscape. Instead of living in a world that's mostly problems with occasional good moments, you'll discover you're living in a world that's actually full of small blessings, with problems that are much more manageable when they're not magnified by an anxious mind. 7. Stop obsessing over results, what Marcus Aurelius did instead. Let me tell you about Alex, a talented artist in Phoenix who's been working on paintings for months in preparation for her first solo gallery show. She's poured her heart, soul, and every spare dollar into this exhibition, and now she's driving herself crazy obsessing over outcomes she can't control. What if nobody shows up? What if people hate my work? What if the critics write terrible reviews? What if I don't sell a single painting? What if this ruins my reputation before it even gets started? She's spent so much mental energy worrying about the reception of her art that she's barely able to enjoy the creative process that made her want to be an artist in the first place. This is the torture of outcome obsession, when we become so fixated on results that we lose sight of the process, the effort, and the things that are actually within our control. Alex had created beautiful art, learned new techniques, pushed her creative boundaries, and grown as an artist, but none of that seemed to matter because she was measuring everything against an imaginary scorecard of external validation. We live in a results-obsessed culture where success is measured by outcomes: how much money you make, how many likes you get, whether you win or lose, what other people think of your efforts. This creates a mental prison where your sense of worth becomes dependent on things you can't actually control: other people's opinions, market conditions, timing, luck, and countless other variables that are completely outside your influence. Here's where Marcus Aurelius, who had to deal with the ultimate outcome pressures as Roman emperor, offers us a revolutionary way of thinking. He could have spent his days obsessing over whether his military campaigns would succeed, whether his political decisions would be popular, or whether history would remember him favorably. Instead, he focused on something entirely different, captured in this profound insight: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. But Marcus took this even further with his approach to daily life. Instead of measuring his worth by external results, he focused entirely on the quality of his effort, the integrity of his intentions, and the virtue of his actions. This wasn't just philosophical theory, it was a practical strategy for maintaining peace of mind while handling enormous responsibilities. The Stoic approach that Marcus practiced is beautifully captured in another quote often attributed to Epictetus: "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." This means that your focus should be on living according to your values and giving your best effort, regardless of how the world responds to those efforts. Your job is to plant seeds with care and attention. You can't control whether they grow, but you can control the quality of your planting. When Alex learned this approach, it transformed her entire relationship with her art and her upcoming show. Instead of asking herself, "What if people don't like my paintings?" she started asking, "Did I put my best effort into each piece? Did I stay true to my artistic vision? Did I challenge myself to grow and improve?" Instead of measuring success by sales or reviews, she measured it by the integrity of her creative process. This shift in focus did something remarkable: it actually improved her art. When she stopped trying to create paintings that would impress other people and started focusing on creating work that represented her authentic vision and best effort, her paintings became more powerful and genuine. Paradoxically, by caring less about external outcomes, she created work that was more likely to resonate with others. The practical application of this mindset is transformative in any area of life. If you're worried about a job interview, instead of obsessing over whether you'll get the position, focus on preparing thoroughly, presenting yourself authentically, and asking thoughtful questions. If you're anxious about a relationship, instead of trying to control how the other person feels about you, focus on being the kind of person you respect, honest, kind, and genuine. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. In his personal journal, he wrote reminders to himself about focusing on his own character and actions rather than external results. He knew that he could be a good emperor regardless of whether every decision led to perfect outcomes, because being a good emperor was about the quality of his judgment, the sincerity of his efforts, and his commitment to doing what he believed was right. This doesn't mean you stop caring about results entirely or that you don't work toward goals. Alex still wanted her show to be successful, and Marcus still wanted his empire to prosper. The difference is that their peace of mind and sense of self-worth weren't held hostage by outcomes they couldn't control. Try this shift in your own life. The next time you catch yourself obsessing over results, ask yourself, what aspects of this situation are actually within my control? Focus your energy and attention on those elements: your preparation, your effort, your attitude, your integrity. Let the results take care of themselves. When you measure your worth by your effort rather than your outcomes, you discover something liberating. You can feel successful even when things don't go as planned, because success becomes about who you are and how you show up, not about what happens to you. 8. Why comfort zones make anxiety worse. The cold shower challenge. Meet Taylor, a 28-year-old marketing professional in Portland who's been stuck in the same routine for 3 years. She wakes up at the same time, takes the same route to work, orders the same coffee, sits at the same desk, and goes home to watch the same Netflix shows. On the surface, this predictability feels safe and comfortable, but Taylor's anxiety levels have been steadily climbing. She lies awake at night worrying about everything. What if I get laid off and can't find another job? What if I have to move to a new city? What if my relationship doesn't work out? What if I get sick and can't take care of myself? The more she tries to control her environment to feel safe, the more anxious she becomes about anything that might disrupt her carefully constructed bubble. This is the comfort zone paradox. The more we try to avoid discomfort and uncertainty, the more anxious we become about the possibility of facing discomfort and uncertainty. It's like trying to build muscle by avoiding all physical challenges. Instead of getting stronger, you actually become weaker and more vulnerable to the very things you're trying to avoid. Taylor's problem wasn't that bad things were happening to her, it's that she had become so accustomed to avoiding even minor discomforts that her tolerance for any kind of challenge had shrunk to almost nothing. A delayed train could ruin her entire morning. A change in her work schedule could trigger a panic attack. Her comfort zone had become a prison where she felt safe, but only as long as nothing ever changed. This is where Marcus Aurelius offers us a counterintuitive but brilliant insight. The art of living is more like wrestling than dancing. He understood that life is fundamentally unpredictable and challenging, and that trying to dance around difficulties instead of engaging with them directly only makes us less capable of handling the inevitable challenges that come our way. The Stoics practiced something that sounds harsh but is actually incredibly liberating. They deliberately sought out controlled discomfort to build their resilience and reduce their anxiety about future hardships. This wasn't masochism or self-punishment, it was practical training for life's uncertainties. This brings us to what I call the cold shower challenge, which is both literal and metaphorical. The literal version is exactly what it sounds like, deliberately taking cold showers to practice tolerating discomfort. But the deeper principle applies to any situation where you voluntarily step outside your comfort zone to build mental strength. When Taylor learned about this approach, she started small. Instead of her usual hot shower, she ended each shower with 30 seconds of cold water. It was uncomfortable, her body tensed up, her breathing changed, and every instinct told her to turn the hot water back on immediately. But she stayed with the discomfort, breathed through it, and discovered something amazing. She could handle it. More importantly, she could stay calm and centered even while experiencing something unpleasant. This might seem like a trivial victory, but it had profound psychological effects. If she could handle the discomfort of cold water, maybe she could handle other uncomfortable situations too. She started taking different routes to work, trying new restaurants, having difficult conversations she'd been avoiding, and saying yes to social invitations that made her nervous. The key insight here is that anxiety often grows in proportion to our avoidance of discomfort. When we constantly seek the path of least resistance, we inadvertently train our brains to see any resistance as dangerous and overwhelming. But when we practice voluntary discomfort, we prove to ourselves that we're more resilient than we thought. The Stoics understood this deeply. Seneca would occasionally eat simple meals, sleep on hard surfaces, and wear plain clothes, not because he couldn't afford better, but because he wanted to remind himself that he could be happy with less. Epictetus, who had been a slave, taught his students to practice small privations to build character and reduce attachment to luxury. You don't have to take cold showers to apply this principle. You could walk instead of driving when possible, carry your groceries instead of using a cart, sleep without your phone nearby, or eat a simple meal when you're craving something elaborate. The specific discomfort doesn't matter. What matters is the practice of choosing difficulty when you could choose ease. The goal isn't to make your life miserable, but to expand your comfort zone gradually and deliberately. When you know you can handle cold water, delayed trains, uncomfortable conversations, and minor inconveniences, you become less anxious about the possibility of encountering these things. Your confidence grows not from avoiding challenges, but from proving to yourself that you can meet them. Start your own comfort zone expansion today. Pick one small way to voluntarily embrace discomfort. Maybe it's that cold shower, maybe it's taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or maybe it's having a conversation you've been avoiding. The specific challenge doesn't matter as much as the practice of choosing growth over comfort. You'll discover that the things you've been afraid of are often much less scary than your imagination made them out to be. And more importantly, you'll build the kind of resilience that makes life's inevitable uncertainties feel manageable rather than overwhelming. 9. The death question that stops overthinking. Let's talk about Lisa, a 32-year-old teacher in San Francisco who has always been a bit of a worrier. She loves her job and her students, but finds herself constantly stressing about what might happen next. What if I get laid off? What if my students don't pass their exams? What if my relationships fall apart? What if I never find my purpose in life? These thoughts swirl around in her mind like a storm, leaving her feeling anxious and paralyzed. Lisa spends countless hours overthinking decisions, replaying conversations, and imagining worst-case scenarios. What Lisa doesn't realize is that her constant worrying is rooted in a fear of mortality. This fear is universal, yet often unspoken. We all know that life is finite, but few of us confront that reality head-on. Stoic philosophers, however, recognized that contemplating our mortality can actually be a powerful tool for overcoming anxiety and overthinking. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote extensively about the importance of remembering that life is temporary. He urged his readers to embrace the concept of memento mori, which translates to remember that you will die. This may sound morbid, but Marcus understood that acknowledging the transient nature of life can help us prioritize what truly matters. When we recognize that our time is limited, suddenly the small worries that consume us lose their significance. This brings us to what I call the death question, a simple yet profound practice that can help you confront your fears and reduce overthinking. The death question asks you to consider, if I knew I had only 1 month to live, how would I approach this situation differently? By framing your concerns in the context of your mortality, you can gain clarity about what truly matters and what deserves your mental energy. When Lisa first learned about the death question, she was skeptical. How can thinking about death help me live better? She wondered. But she decided to give it a try. During a particularly anxious week, she sat down and asked herself the question, if I had 1 month to live, would I worry so much about grading papers or what my colleagues think of me? The answer was a resounding no. Instead of stressing over small details, she realized she would want to focus on making meaningful connections with her students and enjoying the present moment. The transformative power of the death question lies in its ability to shift your perspective. When you consider your mortality, the weight of trivial concerns begins to lift. Instead of getting caught up in the minutiae of everyday life, you start to see the bigger picture. You recognize that life is too precious to spend worrying about things that ultimately don't matter. This practice is not just about reducing anxiety, it's also about fostering gratitude and presence. When Lisa reflected on how she would spend her last month, she found herself appreciating the little things more, the laughter of her students, the beauty of her surroundings, and the warmth of her relationships. She realized that many of the things she worried about were distractions that kept her from fully experiencing life. Marcus Aurelius practiced this contemplation regularly. He encouraged himself to remember that life is fleeting and that we should not waste time on things that do not contribute to our character or well-being. By embracing the reality of death, he cultivated a mindset focused on virtue, purpose, and meaningful action. You can start using the death question in your own life today. The next time you find yourself spiraling into overthinking, take a moment to pause and ask, if I had only a short time to live, would this worry still matter? Write down your thoughts and let them guide you toward what truly deserves your attention and energy. For example, if you're worried about a job interview, consider how you would approach it differently if you knew your time was limited. You might choose to focus on being your authentic self, expressing your ideas passionately, and enjoying the experience rather than obsessing over whether you get the job. This practice can also help you with relationships. If you're anxious about a difficult conversation with a friend or family member, ask yourself how you would handle it if time were running out. You might find that you prioritize honesty and connection over fear of conflict or rejection. The death question doesn't aim to make you morbid or fearful. Instead, it empowers you to live with intention and purpose. By confronting the reality of mortality, you can break free from the chains of overthinking and anxiety that hold you back from fully engaging in your life. Lisa found that by regularly practicing the death question, her perspective shifted. She became more present in her teaching and more open in her relationships. Her worries about trivial matters faded, replaced by a deeper appreciation for the moments that truly mattered. Incorporate the death question into your daily routine. Reflect on it during moments of anxiety or overthinking and allow it to guide your choices. You may find that the weight of your worries lightens, replaced by a sense of clarity and purpose that helps you navigate life with greater ease. 10. Why you can't think your way out, who to ask for help. Let's meet Brian, a 30-year-old software developer in Chicago who prides himself on being self-reliant and independent. He's the go-to guy among his friends for solving technical problems and often helps colleagues troubleshoot their issues. But lately, Brian has been feeling overwhelmed at work and in his personal life. He's juggling multiple projects, dealing with family pressures, and trying to maintain a social life, all while battling anxiety that seems to grow with each passing day. His solution? to think harder about everything, analyze every situation, and come up with a perfect plan to handle it all on his own. This is a common trap that many of us fall into, the belief that we should be able to solve all our problems through sheer willpower and mental effort. We think that if we just analyze our situations enough, we'll find the perfect solution. But the reality is that overthinking can often lead to paralysis, making us feel even more stuck and isolated. This is where Stoic philosophy offers a refreshing perspective. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, understood the importance of seeking wisdom from others. He often surrounded himself with advisors and valued their insights, recognizing that no one is an island. He wrote, "Consult your friend on everything, especially on those matters concerning yourself." This simple yet profound advice highlights an essential truth: we are social beings, and our ability to navigate life's challenges is significantly enhanced when we seek support from others. When Brian learned about this Stoic principle, he realized how much he had been isolating himself with his thoughts. Instead of reaching out for help when he felt overwhelmed, he had been trying to solve everything on his own. The pressure to appear competent and self-sufficient had created a mental block that made it difficult for him to see the solutions right in front of him. The first step in the process of breaking out of this cycle is to acknowledge that seeking help is not a sign of weakness. Rather, it's a demonstration of strength and wisdom. Just as no successful leader operates in a vacuum, you don't have to navigate life's challenges alone. Friends, family, mentors, and even professionals can provide you with perspectives that you might not be able to see from your current vantage point. Brian decided to take action by reaching out to a trusted colleague at work, Sarah, whom he had always admired for her ability to stay calm under pressure. He shared his feelings of being overwhelmed and asked for her advice on how to manage his workload effectively. To his surprise, Sarah not only offered practical strategies for prioritizing tasks but also shared her own experiences of feeling overwhelmed. Hearing her stories helped Brian realize that he was not alone in his struggles. The act of sharing his burdens lifted a weight off Brian's shoulders. He found that simply articulating his worries and concerns allowed him to gain clarity and perspective. It was as if the fog in his mind began to lift, revealing pathways he hadn't considered before. By involving another person in his thought process, he was able to think more clearly and effectively. This brings us to the practical application of the Stoic principle of seeking external wisdom. Here are some actionable steps you can take to incorporate this into your own life. Identify trusted individuals. Make a list of people in your life whose opinions you value. This could include friends, family members, mentors, or even professional counselors. Think about who you respect and who has offered valuable insights in the past. Share your thoughts. When you're facing a challenge or feeling overwhelmed, reach out to one of these trusted individuals. Be open and honest about what you're experiencing. You don't need to have everything figured out before asking for help. Simply expressing your thoughts can often clarify the situation. Ask for specific feedback. Instead of saying, "I don't know what to do," try to frame your questions more specifically. For example, "I'm struggling to balance my work projects and personal life. Do you have any tips on how to prioritize tasks?" This gives the person you're consulting a clearer idea of how they can help you. Be open to different perspectives. Remember that everyone has unique experiences that shape their understanding of life's challenges. Be open to hearing different viewpoints, even if they don't align with your initial thoughts. Sometimes the best insights come from unexpected places. Reflect on the feedback. After discussing your concerns, take time to reflect on the advice you received. Consider how you can integrate these insights into your life. This reflection can help solidify new ideas and strategies in your mind. Seeking help doesn't mean you lack the ability to think critically or solve problems. Instead, it shows that you understand the value of collaboration and the importance of community. The Stoics practiced this principle because they recognized that wisdom doesn't exist in isolation, it flourishes in dialogue and shared experiences. Brian's decision to reach out for help transformed his approach to challenges. He found that he could manage his workload more effectively and felt less anxious about the future. By sharing his thoughts and seeking external wisdom, he not only gained valuable insights but also fostered deeper connections with his colleagues. As you navigate your own challenges, remember the wisdom of the Stoics. You don't have to think your way out of every situation alone. Embrace the power of community and the strength that comes from seeking support. As we wrap up our exploration of Stoic techniques to stop overthinking, it's clear that applying ancient wisdom to modern challenges can transform how we navigate our lives. Whether you're facing the relentless storm of racing thoughts like Lisa, grappling with overwhelming responsibilities like Jennifer, or seeking clarity amid anxiety like Taylor, the Stoics offer practical strategies to reclaim your mental peace. Remember Marcus Aurelius's powerful reminder: you have power over your mind, not outside events. This fundamental truth is the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy and serves as a guiding light through the complexities of life. It empowers you to recognize that while you may not control every situation, you can control your thoughts, your focus, and your reactions. The techniques we've discussed, the cloud technique, the 5-minute focus fix, the river method, the 20-minute worry trick, the boulder method, the 3-thing gratitude fix, the death question, and the importance of seeking external wisdom, are all tools you can integrate into your daily routine. By practicing these strategies, you'll find that life's challenges become less daunting, and you cultivate a sense of resilience that allows you to face whatever comes your way. Take action today. Choose 1 or 2 techniques that resonate with you and commit to practicing them in your daily life. For instance, you might start by incorporating the 3-thing gratitude fix into your evening routine, reflecting on 3 specific things you appreciated that day. Or perhaps you can schedule a worry period and see how focusing your concerns into a designated time can alleviate your anxiety. As you embark on this journey of self-discovery and personal growth, remember that you're not alone. The Stoic philosophers walked this path before us, and their insights remain as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. Let their wisdom guide you as you navigate the ups and downs of life. If you found value in this video and want to continue exploring practical Stoicism for modern life, please subscribe to the STOIC VIVU channel. Like this video and share it with friends who could benefit from these insights. Together, let's persist on this path of wisdom and personal growth, helping each other cultivate a life of purpose, resilience, and peace. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, the power to change your thoughts and your life is always within you.